Hello everyone, and welcome to our Getting Started with SiteUp Pro webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Phoebe. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here at SiteUp Pro, and I'll be running today's session. Now, this webinar will provide you with a basic overview of SiteUp Pro. We're going to look at navigating the dashboard and the mobile app, customizing and scheduling your health and safety forms, and also building out different areas of the system, such as your site, team, equipment, contractors, and resources. Now, most likely you've jumped into this webinar today because you're new to SiteUp Pro, and if so, welcome. Maybe your customer success manager has advised you to jump in so you can learn some initial tips and tricks, or you might already be using SiteUp Pro and want a refresher. We do these sessions on a regular basis, so feel free to register your interest for upcoming sessions or bring your team along as well. And these videos are saved to our Video Resource Center, so you'll be able to share the recording with your team. A bit of a breakdown of today's session. We've just run through a quick introduction, but I'll also touch on SiteUp Pro generally speaking. We'll then jump into a live demo of the platform, having a look at both the admin console and the app side by side. Now, it's important to remember that not everyone on this call will be on the same package, so please bear this in mind if we look through some features that might not seem as familiar. And then finally, we'll look at the support and success resources that are available to you. If you do have a customer success manager that's assisting with you along your journey, feel free to reach out to them. Otherwise, we also have our incredible support team there as well, and a great video and article center. So in a moment, we're going to jump into a SiteUp Pro account, but for those of you who are seeing SiteUp Pro for the first time, maybe you weren't part of the buying process, SiteUp Pro will be your digital health and safety management system. We have two platforms, the admin console that you'll access from your computer, and this is where you'll be able to come in, set up your health and safety forms, your policies, and also manage your jobs or projects. And then we have the mobile app, which your team will be engaging with on a regular basis to check in, check out of those different locations and complete their health and safety forms. So I've gone ahead and shared my screen. We're in a live account. On the left-hand side, you'll see the admin console, and this is where you'll be able to come in and set up your platform. And then on the right, we have the mobile app, where you can log in, your team will be logging in to access SiteUp Pro on a regular basis. The admin console you can jump into via siteuppro.com. Then you'll also see that it opens up this my.siteuppro.com. So feel free to bookmark that tab since you'll be jumping in there on a regular basis. And on the mobile side, we'll be able to see how the two of these platforms interact. But on the mobile side, your team will be able to select the different site that they're working on that day, check into that site, view the hazard board, and then go ahead and either go to their to-do list or click the orange plus button at the bottom of the screen to access all their ad hoc forms. We'll be starting off in the admin console today because this is where you'll be doing most of your customization and your initial setup. Please bear in mind, like I mentioned, that we do have different subscription packs. So if you do see any features that you might not have access to, feel free to reach out to our support team and we'll be able to assist you with those. Now, when you log into the admin console on your computer, you'll land on the dashboard. And the dashboard is a visual reporting interface for your account. You'll see that it's made up of a few different building blocks that, as we scroll down, fill in into different bar charts and pie charts and really give you a bird's eye view of what's happening. You can filter your dashboard by your different sites, jobs, or projects. And then you can also filter it by a date range, so you can select the kind of data that you're looking at. A few of your kind of more key building blocks in your dashboard is your user engagement summary, which expands. And this is where you'll be able to see how your team is engaging with SiteUp Pro on a monthly basis. It'll provide them with a user engagement score, depending on how many active days they've had, whether they've been checking in, checking out, completing their forms, and also viewing hazards and resources. As we scroll down, we can see the forms completed by sites, our certificates, permits, equipment and vehicles, so everything that's coming up for renewal. Again, a few different views to see your forms. And then you also have your corrective action summary in here, which is where you can also come in from the dashboard and create actions for your team. And then finally, just right at the bottom here, some of you will also have a map of your different sites and projects. On the right-hand side, we have our live view here, our activity stream, we call it, of the platform. And this will show you all the live activity that's happening on site. We have a few different icons, so you'll see a check-in, for example, a checkout, a new staff member being added, any forms that are being started and completed at the same time. So this will show you everything that's happening in your account as of this moment. I'm going to go ahead and start off in the forms section. So this is where you'll be setting up your kind of key health and safety forms. Now, depending on the pack that you're on, you might have a customer success manager who's going to be helping build some of your forms. Otherwise, we have a really easy form builder that you can use to add your own forms into the system. As we look through this view, we can see a few different icons on the left-hand side, so a few different types of forms. And when you first open your account, you'll see quite a few of our SiteApp Pro library forms, which you can identify by this orange icon. Now, these forms are really designed to be a starting point, a template for you to have a look through. You can customize them if you think that they'd be relevant for your business, but if not, you can also turn them off and obviously set up your own forms. We have some forms without any logos next to them, and these are custom forms, which we'll show you how to create shortly. And then we also have these forms with the two little people next to them, and these are forms that have been set up at group level. So if you do have an account that's sitting under a wider group, you'll also be able to manage your forms within the group level. As we zoom out, we can also see a few forms which are scheduled here. So we have weekly, monthly, and daily. And from the mobile view, the forms which are scheduled will appear within the team's to-do list. So we can see here today's tasks, this week's tasks, and this month's tasks. Any forms that are not available via the to-do list, you'll be able to access in the form library here, which is right down the bottom. And your team can also access the form library by clicking the big orange plus button from the home screen. So if we just jump out, we can see the orange plus button down the bottom here. Now, with the SiteApp Pro template forms, as I mentioned, you can fully customize them. And to change any of these forms and to look through the build of the questions, what you can do is you can click the pencil icon on the right-hand side here. This is our form builder view. So this is the view you'll be seeing as well when we will be creating forms from scratch. And we have a few different building blocks and also your toolkit on the left-hand side and your analytics on the right. So the key information we're looking at here is we have the title of the form category, which we can see comes into play when we look through our wider form library on the mobile. And then underneath, we have our form settings. So the key settings to pay attention to here are whether you'd like the form to be available via the form library, or whether you'd like it to be on a form completion schedule. And if you would like it on a form completion schedule, would that be daily, weekly, monthly? If it's daily, for example, which days, what time during those days? And then a few other key settings to pay attention to is we have a form completion notification settings. So if there's a team member that would like to be emailed completed versions of this form as they're submitted, you can drop their email in there. And then you can decide, whether you'd like to make this form a quiz, for example, whether you'd like it to repeat itself, and any kind of description and attribution you'd like to give to it as well. For those of you on premium or enterprise packages, you will see these advanced settings as well. And this is where you can come in and set up approvals, workflows, or expiries with your forms. So approvals would be when a form needs to be approved by upper management when it's being submitted. You can also set the expiry up for a form. And then finally, a workflow as well. So for example, If someone submits an incident form and then the manager has to go through and do an investigation, it might be that you want to set up a workflow behind this form. Then finally, we come down into the form build. So we can see this form has 77 questions, and we can expand the different questions going downwards and make changes to them. Amazing. So if we expand the different areas downwards, we can see that we can edit the question type. We can also edit the answer type. And then we have a few extra tools here. So if you'd like to duplicate this question, if you'd like to delete it, if you'd like to schedule this question, and also if you'd like to make it required. What we'll do is we'll open up this form in the mobile view as we look through it. And you can see we have a few different building blocks that make up this form. So we have our questions here in the gray. And then we also have a few tools that are used to separate the form. We have our section, our form section, for example, which you can see here in blue. We also have a conditional section, which is very similar to a form section, but depending on what your team answer, it'll either open that section or skip over it. And then we also have two ways that you can just add plain text in the form. And this is the information panel and the collapsible panel as well. And this is just plain text you can add into the form. Now with your questions, if you do want to edit answer types, we have quite a few different options you can select from. So this is the ways in which your team members can answer these questions. So you have everything from yes, no, and reason here, short text, multi-line text, photos, addresses. So you can really play around and select the best, most efficient ways that your team answer each of those questions and make changes to any of your custom forms. If we jump out of this form, I'll go ahead and click the orange plus button up at the top here, and this is how you'd be able to create your own custom form. Now we can see this same interface coming up here, and the key pieces of information that we need to fill out for each of our forms are the form name and also selecting the form category. From here, like we've just done, you can edit your form settings, set up any advanced settings if those features are available to you, and then you can build your form questions downwards. So you can add your questions, type them out, select your answer type, make them required, and build your form downwards from there. Once you're done, you can either save it as a draft if you're still working on it, or you can publish it, and this will make it available to the team in the mobile. Now, with any of these forms that you do want to turn off, the only thing you need to do is go into the form settings like we did previously and just remove them from the form library. You will see this bin icon here, and you can delete the form. So this is a permanent deletion. So just bear that in mind. Otherwise, if you turn any of your forms off, you will be able to still view them by clicking Show Unused Forms here. And we can see a few forms with the exclamation mark next to them, and that means that they have been turned off. One other thing to mention on the form front is our user groups here. If you are on our professional pack or up, you will have access to the user group feature, which is a way of limiting the groups of users that have access to different forms. So we have a site foreman group here, for example, and you can add users, you can create custom groups. And if you link a form to that group, it just means that it's not available for everyone to access apart from the site foreman in this situation. Jumping out of forms, I'm going to jump into our site section next. And for our sites, this can be renamed. So depending on what's most appropriate for your business, you might want to call this projects, areas, zones, job sites. And this is where all your sites will be stored that your team will be checking in and out of daily and completing their forms. Now, when a team, like we see here, have selected a different site and checked in, Their activities, so their scheduled forms, their ad hoc forms, any actions as well, are saved under these different sites. If the team have their location services turned on their mobile, they'll be able to see how close or how far away they are from a site, and this list will organize them in a distance radius. So the site that they're closest to will come right to the top of their list. With the sites, if you are working across multiple sites as well, or you do have quite a few sites that you're currently working across, you can bulk upload them. And this is a CSV template that you can download and then upload using the orange button here. Just make sure you follow these formatting requests and you'll be able to bulk upload them all at the same time. Otherwise, we can add a site similarly to adding new forms. So you click the big orange plus button, you can go add a site up at the top here. And the only key information that's required is the name of the site. Again, this is fully customizable, so it might be that you want to add your job site number into this as well as the site title, so you can decide what's best to label the different sites. And then we have a custom category feature that you can use. Then as you scroll down, you have the address for the site. Now, if you are working within a development, you can add the latitude and the longitude as well. And if your team have Tablet Manager access and above, they are also able to add sites from their mobile. And what they can do is they can drop a pin on a location and then just drag that pin around so it matches where they are. You can set a site close time, and this is usually handy if you do have team members that forget to check out at the end of the day, because this will send them a notification before the site is due to close. And then you have some key contact detail here, which we can also see within the mobile view. And you can really decide how much or how little of this you'd like to fill out. But you have here key contacts for the site, so project manager, safety manager. You are also able to add an optional pin to a site. And this might be that you want to use this feature to lock a site that you don't want your whole team to have access to. And then again, you have a way of receiving notifications for forms which are completed under the site. So it might be that, for example, if you have a project manager, they'd like to be emailed every time you have a form that's been completed under that site, and you can add that email in here. Then as we scroll down, we have our key health and safety information, which is also available to view for visitors using the visitor QR code. And then we have our scheduled start and scheduled end dates there. Now, once you create a site, what you're able to do is you can click the pencil icon next to the site, and we see a few other tabs here pop up at the top. One of our key features when it comes to sites is the hazard board feature. And if we just navigate back out to the mobile home screen, you'll be able to see the hazard board just underneath the check-in and check-out button. A hazard board, a digital hazard board, similar to your physical hazard board on sites, acts as a way of making sure that the team acknowledge the hazards on site. They can also add new hazards as well from their mobile if hazards do come up while they're working at that particular site. And what's great about this feature is that your team are prompted to review and acknowledge it. So we have quite a few hazards in this site. They can click read and understood there down at the bottom, and this will get rid of those notifications on their home screen. But from the reporting side of things, you'll also be able to see how many people and who has acknowledged each of those different hazards. So it's that extra layer of reporting. Then we have our pinned forms, and a pinned form is a live collaborative form across the site. If we navigate over to our to-do list on the mobile, we'll be able to see our pinned forms right at the bottom of the to-do list. Pinning a form is kind of like putting a document into Google, SharePoint, Google Drive, or SharePoint. So you're making it collaborative and live for everyone to edit. This feature works really well for registers, for example, but you wouldn't necessarily use it for your team's day-to-day forms that they're working on individually. Then we have our resources section. So this is where you can come in and you can upload any documentation that your team might need across the site. And they'll be able to access this documentation by selecting resources. and then going over to the site resources. And then finally, we also have our subcontractor or supplier access and also the visitor register. So 2 ways to have different audiences engage with the site. For your supplier and subcontractor access, this is a way of setting up an account for a subcontractor or a supplier and deciding which different locations that they engage with. And with your visitor register, this is available for professional packs and up. This is a way of getting your visitors to check in and check out of different sites by setting up a QR code. You're also able to set up a custom induction form for them, and they'll also be able to view and acknowledge the hazard board. We'll jump into team and users next, and this is where you'll be able to come in and set up your team. Now we do have, if we click the plus button, we'll see 2 ways that you can add team members, and they both have bulk uploading options. So you can add your team member as a user, so a user with a user login, or you can just add them as a team member. And this means that you're not giving them a login access quite yet. So you might want to add your team as team members originally because you're still building at the back end of SiteUp Pro. You might be testing and you want a space where you can upload all their certificates and permits and create a profile for them, but you don't want them to log in quite yet. When you add them as a team member, the only required information is their first and last name, and you just have access to 2 user roles. So once you're able to create a login for them, so for example, with Chad here, who's been added as a team member, we can select to add a login for them, and then we can select from the full list of user roles and provide their email and password. Again, if you have quite a large team, you can bulk upload, so either as users or as team members. And similar to what we saw with the sites, we just have a template here for you, and just make sure that you follow the formatting requirements. With most of your team, it will be likely that you'll just be adding them in as users, so giving them a login straight away. And so you'll see here that their email and password is required. You can just set them up with a stock standard password. Once you submit this form, it will send them a reset password email, so they'll be prompted to reset their password within the first couple of hours. This is where you can also pick from the full suite of user roles. So we have our admin and managers, which are the 2 highest levels of access. These are also the 2 levels that have access to your admin console, so not your whole team are able to access the backend. And then your most senior level of access on site is your tablet manager. And this means that on the mobile, they're able to view everyone's completed forms. They're able to add new sites, add new users, and add new pieces of equipment. And then your day-to-day team will probably sit in the field worker or in the contractor categories. And these 2 roles have the same level of access, so they're only able to view and complete their own forms on the mobile and view all the other resources and documentation. The only difference between the 2 is a contractor is able to work across multiple companies that are using SiteUp Pro, so they're able to switch between those different company accounts. If we scroll down the bottom here as well, you'll see your user notification summary. And this is where you'll be able to come in and set up the notifications for your team members. You can select whether they'd like an in-app email or both. And we have a few different options here down the right-hand side. So notifications for Blue Notes, for example, equipment maintenance, certificate expiries, and corrective actions are the key ones. If we scroll up, we can also see our user groups function here. So this is where you can come in and you can link different users to user groups, and we'll jump into how to set up user groups when we navigate over to your My Business. And then you can also see here how to link a different supplier or contractor accounts to a user. And this is where that tool comes in play, where you can select which different sites they have access to. So differently from your forms, you can't delete staff members, you can only archive them. So what you'll be able to see here is you can see the little bin icon, and you can go ahead and archive those different staff members. That's also the case for sites, and the reason for this is that the system captures that historical information and doesn't get rid of it. And then you'll also just be able to see left to right that kind of overarching view of the different user groups, their last login, notifications, and the position as well. We'll go ahead and jump into equipment next. And this is where you'll be able to come in and manage your equipment cycles of maintenance and also any documentation that you'd like to save under pieces of equipment. In the mobile app, we can see the equipment drop-down in here. And this is where the team will be able to jump in, view those pieces of equipment, view their maintenance due dates, but also have a look at any documentation that's saved under those pieces of equipment. Again, when adding new pieces of equipment, you can select that big orange plus button, and you do have a bulk upload option as well. And then as we open this up, we have a few different fields we can decide to track. The required fields here are the name and the category. If you do select a vehicle, this will also open up an extra section of the platform where you can track road user charges. Then we have our WOF or our COF date, our registration date, who it's maintained by, and the maintenance frequency. And this could either be a time-based frequency, so days, weeks, or months, but it could also be per kilometers, miles, or hours. And then we have the last maintenance date. So the system will track the maintenance cycle, and you'll be notified 15 days before, depending on your notification settings, which you saw previously. You'll be notified 15 days before the piece of equipment is due to be maintained again. And then we can see these road user charges section here for your vehicles. So you can track your road user charges in SiteUp Pro here by just filling in this information. Then finally, once you have submitted a piece of equipment, you can click the pencil icon next to that piece of equipment and add any resources to it as well. So any additional PDF files or certificates and permits that you'd like to track under that piece of equipment. Jumping one above to our suppliers and contractors section, and similar to the sites, this section can be renamed depending on your needs. As a standalone, this works more or less as a directory function, so where you can capture the information for your suppliers or contractors, and you can also capture any certificates. So if we jump out of equipment on our mobile and go over to suppliers and contractors, we'll see this directory looking interface. And as you add them in, you can add their key details here, their certificates, and you can also, similarly to pieces of equipment, upload any resources under their profiles. This does not give them access as a standalone, so it creates a container kind of account. But if you would like to give your suppliers or contractors access, you can come over to Team and Users, set them up with a login. And in this section here, you can decide which subcontractor you'd like to link them to. And then in turn, if we come over to sites, we can click the pencil icon here, go over to supplier and contractor access, and decide which sites they need to have access to. And then we have our My Business section. So this is where you'll be coming in to fill in your key business details. We have spoken about with our suppliers and contractors and our site section that you can rename these sections. So if we go over to the settings and we scroll down, you'll be able to see your site settings where you can come in and rename that section to maybe jobs or projects, whatever works best for your business. And then you also have the supplier label, which you can rename as well. If we scroll up to the top here, we'll be able to see where you can come and set up user groups. And again, this is a feature for our professional packages and up. So you can type in a user group, you can set them up. They'll appear down the bottom here, and then you can scroll down and click the Save button to save those changes. We also spoke about approvals earlier on for premium and enterprise customers. So this is where you'll be able to come in and set up your approvers within your team. So this will probably be someone from senior management. And as we scroll across in My Business, we also have your visitor register set up in this section. So for our professional packs and up, you do have access to the visitor QR code register. This is something that you could set up as a kiosk on an iPad, or you could also print off the QR code so that your visitors can scan it as they're checking in and out of different sites. And you can set up different induction forms for different audiences within this section. So we have here public visitors, first time and returning, subcontractors, first time and returning, and employees, first time and returning. You do also have a feature for premium and enterprise where you can override forms for different site categories. And then you have here an acknowledgement, which you can customize, which is part of the visitor QR code. Then finally, I'm going to jump into our reporting section. And you do have a few different views when it comes to reporting. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a larger data range here up at the top. So you can select the data range that you'd like to report on. And you have a few different views that you can come into and use to either export forms, download forms as PDF to send them over to other contractors or maybe other companies. And then you can also save CSV files of these different views if you'd like to visualize any of the data. Within our completed forms section, this will create a chronological list of all the forms that have been completed within that time period. And you can filter this by sites or by multiple sites. And then you can also filter by form category and form status. And then you have a blank search bar as well that you can also use to filter. We can see most of these forms have a tick next to them. So that means that they've been submitted versus the pause button down the bottom here. So this might be that you need to give this team member a bit of a nudge because they might have just submitted the form as a draft. And then we have a few forms that have a blue note assigned next to them and a corrective action as well. And if we jump into our forms again, just to highlight our blue note and corrective action features, for each form, your team can choose to add a blue note to it by just clicking the blue note function here down at the bottom. And this is a comment that they can add to a form. So not necessarily something that needs to be actioned, but just a comment. But they can also add a corrective action here if they choose to. And this is where they can assign a task to someone. So they can choose to assign it to a person, give it a due date, a priority, and a status. And depending on the due date, this will appear in the other person's to-do list for the day. You can also view your corrective actions from the dashboard as we initially saw. So with this list here, you can decide to filter it down. You can click the eye icon, and this will open up an individual form. And then you can click the print icon, and this will open up a PDF version of the form. If you've added your logo into the My Business, it'll also add your logo to the top left of the form. Otherwise, I could also download this as a CSV file, so as an Excel file, excuse me, that you can visualize or manipulate how you'd like to. Coming over to form reports, we have a bit of a different view here. And form reports creates a report for all the forms that have been completed within that time frame. So we see we have a few forms here that we can produce a report for, but we also have a few forms that are sitting at 0. For the forms that we can create a report for, we can select here, View Report, and then it creates a breakdown of the form that goes through the questions in a bit more detail versus our completed forms view. You can decide how many columns are visible, so these would be the different questions in your form. And again, you can filter this by site, filter it by answers, filter it by blue notes. You can view these different forms, but also export them as a CSV file, and again, visualize it in Excel. Then we have our workflow settings. So for someone, for any accounts on here that are premium and enterprise, this is where you'll be able to come in and view those different workflows. And then you have your summary, which is similar to the dashboard in that it's made up of quite a few different building blocks. Again, depending on your date range, it'll show you those different pieces of information. And you can have a look through the different building blocks here. So we have one for sites, training summaries, group summaries if you're within a group. We have a summary version of our Blue Notes in here that we can export. So you can export all of these different sections. And then as we scroll down, we can also see So our different hazard and inspection reporting, our task reporting, and again, our corrective actions in here as well. So that's it for our demo today. When you first set up your SiteUp Pro account, the kind of key areas to look at focusing on will be your forms, your team and users, and your job sites. Then you can work on building out the rest with your team. If you do have a customer success manager, they'll be there along the journey to support you with the back end as well. We do recommend launching to a smaller team to begin with if you'd like to, so what we call a soft launch. And then you can slowly give different teams or different stakeholders access as we work through any kind of initial feedback with your customer success manager. Thank you so much for joining today. Finally, if you do need a hand, please reach out to our incredible support team. Otherwise, you're also welcome to reach out to your customer success manager as well. We do have an incredible video education center, which is where this video will be saved. So you'll find the link in there. So feel free to go ahead and share this recording with your team. Wishing you a lovely day, and thank you so much for making the time today.